Hey, everybody, welcome back to another fantastic edition of the His and Her Money Show. We are excited that you are here with us because you could be in a lot of places, but the fact that you are here at the His and Her Money Show, we don't take it for granted. We do our best to help you take dominion over your money and your life. And we're going to do that or attempt to do that yet again. We try to bring you guys as many powerful people, as many powerful voices as we can to help you from every angle, to give you some inspiration and some education on your journey. Do us a favor. If you haven't already done so and you've been rocking with us and you've enjoyed the show, leave us a review. If you're listening to the podcast, we could definitely use those 5-star reviews. It lets those podcast apps know that this show is something that other people should hear as well. And it's our goal. It's our desire to help as many people as possible, and you can help us do that. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about some debt freedom. Y'all know we love debt freedom, because in our own lives, it's provided just that freedom. It's given us options. It's given us the ability to sit in the driver's seat in a lot of ways that we were not able to when we were stuck in a whole lot of debt. And we have a very special guest by the name of Kristin. She runs an awesome platform called Sits and Purpose. And she's here to talk about her journey, her fight against that mountain of debt that so many of us are familiar with. And we hope that inside her story, you find some encouragement to help create or continue in yours. So let's get Kristin on so we can hear all of her fantastic story and the lessons that she's learned along the way. Hey, Kristin, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. So, we're excited to jump into all that you've been through on your journey to financial freedom, but some people are being introduced to you for the first time right here and right now. So for them, can you say hello and then let them know what you're all about?
Hello, I'm Kristin Stones, and I am about sharing personal finance in a practical way so that people are able to take those tips and improve their own financial situation without feeling like they need a finance degree to do so. My debt story that we're going to talk about today just made me feel like I wanted to share it with others in hopes that they could find something inspiring or motivating and be able to apply it to their own lives.
So you just said it started with your story, and that's how you got motivated to share your story to help others. So take us back to the beginning. Where were you at? What was the situation that prompted you to first personally, before any platform, say, I need to figure this money thing out?
Wow, that was probably a 2-decade long kind of leading up to it. And the moment, the catalyst that I always call our come to Jesus moment was just after a few years, things had gotten really rough, and I was trying to find a way to stay home and work from home with my children. My husband was working full time, and I kept kind of going back and forth into the workforce and trying these little side things, and nothing was working. And every time I would come home and try something new, of course, our income would go down, our debt would go up, and it took such a toll on my mental health, my husband's mental health, our marriage, our family. And it just kind of all came to a head one time. I believe it was the end of 2016. And we kind of sat across from each other at the dining room table, stoic. And he brought up the divorce word, the D word. And it just really kind of took me back. We had always had a rule that we never use that word, right? Because when you kind of throw that around casually, it's not something we ever wanted to use. So when he used that for the first time in about 15 years, I knew I wasn't the only one really, really feeling the weight of all these issues here. And as the story goes, that was kind of it. We walked away that night. I knew we had to do something. I applied and got a job the very next day, a part-time job, and it was right before Christmas. So as soon as the holiday was over, we went and we found a personal finance course at a local church. We went and we took it. And I think just something about hearing a third party where it's not your spouse telling you what to do and telling you how to spend or what not to spend on. Something about hearing that third party really spoke to my husband. And that's it. For the first time in probably 15 years, we felt like we were on the same page and we were united and we were ready to go. And we set up our plan and we just attacked it from there.
Wow. Now, we always hear that, one of the leading causes of divorce is finances. And so here you guys were at this breaking point where that word came up. Now, that was the catalyst to move you guys in the right direction. But I'm curious, before this catalyst moment, what were your financial conversations like? As you said, y'all have been married for 15 years. So when you all did attempt to talk about money, what did that look like beforehand?
It looked like a fight almost every time, or it looked like, at the very least, frustration every time. I have always handled the finances, not because I'm especially good at it, just because I'm a nerd. I love spreadsheets. I love organizing and doing all that, and I'm a major control freak. And my husband he's more passive. He doesn't really care. He doesn't want to deal with it. So when you're the person that handles the finances and the other person prefers to be hands off, it puts you in that almost like that power struggle where I felt like I was always bossing him around and telling him what he couldn't do with his money. And he always felt like I was yelling at him that he couldn't spend any money. And honestly, we did not live a lavish lifestyle at all. We didn't drive fancy cars. We didn't have like super extravagant homes. Um, we weren't buying designer clothes, and it was those everyday expenses that just really added up. So it was kind of constant bickering back and forth about who was spending what and uh, where we had to cut back. And I always felt guilty because anytime I was home and he was out working, making the money, I felt terrible telling him he couldn't buy something when he was obviously I was working at home, taking care of the kids and doing things on the side, but I just felt like I wasn't in a position to tell him what to do. And it just really, it was tense all the time. Money seeps into every single part of your life, as you know. So pretty much any conversation we would have, related or not, would eventually circle back to money in some way.
And so, what changed in that area, the way that you all conversated about money, that allowed you all to start making some progress in the right direction financially?
I think a lot of it really does have to do with timing. And I know timing isn't always within our control, but I really believe that God really kind of gave us that moment and those resources at that time and put us on the same page. And sadly, that page was we were both ready to almost give up and feeling like we were at the end of our rope, but we were both feeling that way. So in a way, that really brought us together, and we both could feel from the other that kind of this was it. This was our last chance. Either we get it together now, we get on the same page and we figure this out, or we could be managing our own finances by ourselves at that time next year. So I think it was almost like we both just intrinsically knew that this was it. And it almost just brought something out in each of us that maybe we were willing to listen to the other a little bit more. Maybe we were both willing to sacrifice a little bit more, and almost took some of the anger and some of the resentment out of the conversations and just maybe allowed us to better communicate without that tension there constantly.
Yeah. So, okay, now you guys move past that moment, and you found your the grace to not go there, but to go to a class together. What was next? Like, as you all were sat there, you said it was good that you all had a third party kind of, even through this class, a third party speaking into the situation to help you guys hear a little more clearly about what you guys were facing when it came to your finances. So, what happened next?
We kind of just walked out of there, and we both just kind of said, wow. just wow, it was like this epiphany, that all of the hopeless feelings that we both had for the past 10 to 15 years, it was almost this permission of like, you can hope again, you can get out of this. You're not the only one in this type of situation, you're not the only couple that struggles with this, and there is a way, it is possible. So it was just diving headfirst into creating that budget, which we have tried to do a million times over the years, but we'd give up so easily, time and time again. And we had that gap between our income and our expenses, and it was hard to bridge that gap. So that would lead to charging on credit cards and feeling defeated immediately and just giving up. And this time we both just had that extra motivation, and we were able to just push through and stick with it. And I immediately, as in that night while he was laying in bed asleep, I could not sleep. My mind was buzzing, and I grabbed my phone and typed out these super aggressive goals in the notes app on my iPhone. And then I accidentally kicked him on purpose to wake him up. And so I could share my goals with him. And he was like, "You're insane. There's absolutely no way. We don't make that much money. There's no way." And I'll tell you, we hit every single goal either on time or early along the way. There's just something so powerful about putting it out there, even if it is on your notes app.
So can you talk to us about, help people that are getting ready to attempt this? What were some of those goals that were crazy that you ended up accomplishing anyway?
Well, I had set goals about paying off each specific loan, right? So I'd kind of break it down, just take the balance and break it down by what I thought we could pay each month, and then I would knock like a month or two off just to make it aggressive. And I really didn't think we were going to reach them, and I don't know. I think we just experienced so many unexpected blessings along the way because. Um, I feel that God saw we were finally being good stewards of what we already did have. And so then he allowed us to finally have more, right? He gave us more because he knew we were going to handle it correctly. So instead of going out to spend it when these blessings came, we paid it on our debt, right? Um, as far as the goals, it was my husband taking on overtime when he could. It was me doing the very best I could to save as much money on anything we purchase, on our groceries, on our trips to purchase household goods, on clothing we had to purchase. I really just kind of made it my mission to make his paycheck stretch as far as possible. And as I mentioned earlier, I did go get a part-time job. And while I wasn't able to do a ton of hours due to his work schedule and childcare, everything that I brought in was able to go to our debt. So really just cutting those extra expenses and focusing as much as possible on whatever goal we were working at that time. Then you cross it off, and then we just put all that focus into the next one and just rinsed and repeated along the way.
So it sounds like part of the beginning stages of the journey was to find out exactly how much debt you were in. Talk about that process, the emotions that came with the realization of the real numbers. And was there a moment of pause there once you did the final calculations? And how did you overcome that?
Yeah. Now, when I talk about this, I tell people to take their financial inventory. At the time, I didn't have a name for it, but it's exactly what you said. We kind of sat down and looked at it all, and it was emotional. I knew everything we had debt wise because I paid the bills and I managed the money, but I knew it in terms of monthly minimum payments for each debt, right? For each account. And you're right. When you sit there and you total it all up and you look at that number in totality and it's staring back at you, it is really emotional. It almost does, like you said, it almost takes your breath away for a second there, and you think, holy cow, where, how did I get here? Where did this come from? And I think it's okay to experience those emotions. I definitely experienced some shame. I felt a lot of guilt. I felt just kind of out of control. Like, I knew we were struggling. How did I let it get to this point? Um, and I also knew that it was normal. Sadly, it was normal nowadays. We had 2 car loans. I had already paid off my student loans years ahead, years prior, but we had 2 car loans. We had a bunch of credit card debt. We had a loan that I had taken out for braces. That was 0% interest, but it was still debt that money we owed somebody, and it felt hopeless. It felt like we're never going to be able to conquer this. It's too much. It's too big. We make too little. It's just not possible. But you sit in it and you feel it and you experience it. But then you got to just pick yourself up and you got to start, because if you don't, I mean, you're never going to climb the mountain if you don't take that first step. So we pitied ourselves for a little bit, and then we sucked it up and got to work.
And what was the final total for you all when you all sat down and did the inventory?
So our total is kind of a funky little 2-part thing. It was technically $35,000. However, which we paid off in our first wave of debt payoff, if you will. However, I told you I kept trying to do these little businesses on the side so I could make some income and stay home with my kids. And at the time, I was trying to make one of those businesses work, and it had an additional $20,000 of credit card debt. Now, the revenue of the business was making the payments of the credit cards. It's not like we were paying them out of our personal bank account. But after we paid off that initial $35,000, I can't explain it. It just didn't sit well anymore. I wanted nothing to do with the business anymore. It wasn't bringing me any joy. It was just adding more stress. And here we were working so hard to get this money stress out of our lives and our marriage. And then on the other side, this was just constant stress. So we decided to go, a couple months later, we decided we were going to go back, pay off that additional $20,000 of debt, and just kind of start fresh. So the full total was just about $55,000.
Wow, that is so amazing. Now, what's interesting is you guys were doing multiple things. You're getting out of debt and also attempting entrepreneurship. A lot of people have that as a question, as a wonder, like, man, can I pursue this dream while I'm getting out of debt? Or should I just focus totally on getting out of debt? And then once I get out of debt, maybe I'll try to take that leap of faith. So talk to us about the conversations you all were having, the strategy that you all were employing while you all were attacking these multifaceted goals at the same time, and whatever lessons that you would impart to somebody if you could go back to the start line, how you would attack it differently, or if you would do it exactly the same.
Definitely would not do it the same at all. I've always been entrepreneurial. Even before I really knew what that was, I just kind of had this thing inside of me. So I had always tried thing after thing after thing, and again, none of them proved to be successful. And I believe that a big part of that was because there was always this debt involved, right? And of course, in hindsight, I know that. I didn't know that at the time. And my husband is very, very non-entrepreneurial. He has his job. He doesn't necessarily like it, but he goes, he works hard. He's been there a long time. So he was always supportive, but he didn't quite understand it. So it was always something that I was kind of doing on my own, parallel to whatever we were trying to do here within our household. And one of the big reasons it didn't work is simply because it was always a burden financially. And I think a lot of times when you're trying to start a business, of course, you're going to have these startup costs and these financial burdens. So I think as far as advice for somebody else, I would say it's completely dependent on their specific situation, completely dependent on whatever kind of business they are thinking about starting, and what the costs are going to look like. Because in some ways, it could absolutely put you on the fast track when it comes to paying your debt off, because you could have this additional income stream. You could bring in extra money and siphon it right to your debt. However, if it's a type of business where you're constantly needing to put thousands of dollars out for inventory or pay a lot of employees, and you're strapped money wise, it's my opinion that that's probably going to just make things even more stressful for you in the debt payoff journey. Again, that's just me. That's not necessarily for everybody. But I absolutely think at the very least, starting a side hustle or just finding a hobby that you already love and finding a way to monetize it while you're paying off debt it's just going to help you so much along the way. And if you want to make that a business, if the opportunity presents itself, or maybe when you're out of debt and then you free up some cash if you need the cash to start your business, I think it's a great idea to have additional income in some way.
Imagine a life where your money isn't strangled by mortgage payments. Imagine what you could do when you don't have to send them money that you work so hard for. Come get simple, powerful, and real solutions to eliminating monthly mortgage payments forever. America's #1 money couple presents Crush My Mortgage. In this exclusive course, you will be equipped with strategies to help you move faster toward the promised land of owning your house free and clear. Learn strategies to help you in the areas of payment acceleration, extra income generation, and wealth creation, all to help you crush your mortgage. Visit crushmymortgage.com and get started today. Join us on the path to power, freedom, and legacy. That's crushmymortgage.com.
Now, you said that one of the things that is a part of who you are is organization. You love spreadsheets and having things organized. How did that play a role in your journey, and what advice would you give out to others on how to be attacking their finances and their debt in an organized fashion?
Yes, I'm organized, I think maybe to a fault sometimes. I often will spend more time prepping and organizing and less time taking action. So I would say the first thing would be to have a balance there and do not let the setting up and the organizing and the tracking keep you from actually taking action. Because at the end of the day, that's what's really going to change your numbers, right? And help you progress through your journey. But yes, I love tracking my finances in a printable budget binder that I print out and stick in a binder. I use that instead of a small little checking register, and I can track everything. I love to track our spending. I think that's really important if you are struggling with overspending, and that was possibly a factor in where your debt came from to begin with. Because if you're not able to identify and treat whatever put you in that position, then it's possible you could work so hard, pay off your debt, and work your way back there at some point in the future. So I think if overspending is an issue, being organized and really taking the time to track your spending meticulously, it gives you some invaluable data that will help you along the way. Find a way to track your budget, whether that's in a spreadsheet or an app or software or on pen and paper. It really doesn't matter. Find a way that works for you and the way your brain works, because we definitely don't all work the same way. And if my husband would try to use the tools that I use, he could not even pay a bill with it, right? Because it just doesn't make sense for the way his brain works. So there's so many tools out there. There's so many different options. And I think just experimenting with some different things and figuring out what feels good to you and works well for you is ultimately going to help you be the most successful.
I'm curious because you said that your journey came in two parts. Part one was the 35,000, and then you guys went back and attacked the business debt. How long did each parts of this total journey take place? Just to give people some context.
Yes, good question. So part one, the $35,000 took us 7 months to the day. And then that was just about, I think that brought us to about October, November. So we started Christmas shopping and planning for the holidays. And then right after the holidays, I believe in January is when we decided and started with the 20 grand. And that took us, I think, an additional 8 or 9. So in total, from the day we began to the day we were fully debt free, aside from our mortgage, was just under 20 months. So there was a couple months that we weren't actually working to pay it off in the middle there.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm curious, like, what happened? Because when you came home from that class, you couldn't sleep, you're writing goals, and your husband said this seems impossible because of the amount of debt that we're in and the income level that we're at. So how are y'all able to just turn into these debt busting rock stars? And one part 8 months, another part, like, you guys really knocked this thing out. What was the key, do you think, to being able to not just hit your goals, but like you said, in some of these instances, you were knocking some of these loans out earlier than you projected?
Yeah, we were. It was 3 things. It was consistency for the first time ever. It was laser focus, almost obsessively focused. That's my personality. And blessings. Honestly, I don't want to give anybody this illusion that we made a bajillion dollars and kind of hit the lottery and we're able to pay this off. I was bringing in a part-time income, and my husband made probably just over average income at that time. We had a lot of things, not a lot, a couple of things that were out there. For example, my husband's a veteran, and he had a disability claim filed that was just denied. And randomly, in the middle of this debt payoff journey, with no warning, he received a back pay check. His claim was approved, and we received a check for a couple $1,000s that we had no idea was coming, and we were able to put it fully on our debt. We used our tax return, the entire thing. He had a contract from work that was delayed like 2 years. That came in. I mean, it was a lot of blessings, and it was a lot of just that consistency day to day. It was a lot of me keeping my butt out of Target. It was a lot of me keeping my butt off of Amazon. And we never really went out to eat a lot. We weren't people that spent a lot on traveling or entertainment. So we didn't really struggle to cut back in those areas. That wasn't an issue for us. So really just focusing on those couple areas that were triggers and were spots that we consistently overspent in, and putting our focus on reining ourselves in those areas, I think had a big impact along the way.
Now, the name of your platform is Sense and Purpose. And so when we're trying to overcome those things that are our things, for you, it was Target and Amazon. For somebody else, it's going to be other things. But trying to overcome our thing is not easy. So was it the purpose part that helped you stay motivated, because you knew that if I focus on the purpose, this money thing will take care of itself? What allowed you to be consistent like never before this time?
Yeah, I think you're right. And when I say purpose in the name of my business, I guess maybe I'm essentially referring to your why, right? I want to help people live a life that is focused more on those things that matter the most to us, and focus less on the things that don't matter. And a lot of times our priorities are flip-flopped, right? And that's how it was for me. I was out there spending all this money on things that, I mean, it wasn't clothes and shoes for myself. It was stuff around the house or things for the kids, but it was obviously an attempt to fill some sort of void, find stress relief, right? But ironically, the majority of my stress was coming from our finances. So it makes no sense that I would attempt to relieve that stress by spending more money. And every time I would check out or leave, I'd think, who the heck put all that stuff in my cart? I only came here for 2 things, right? Why was my bill $150? And I'd leave and I'd feel terrible, and I'd feel upset. And it was like, this is silly. This stuff literally is keeping me from being able to enjoy the things in life that give me purpose, right? Do we need a new dish towel? Sure. But is it going to give me purpose? No. Is it going to serve, what I love in life, my family, my friends? It's not. And I think until we're really able to get super honest with ourselves and be really self-aware and um, identify what those triggers are and what behaviors are causing it and try to get to the root of them, it's really difficult to maintain that consistency. And I think over time, that was probably my struggle. I knew I was spending too much, but I just didn't really want to stop. Right? Like I wanted to do that because it was giving me that dopamine and making me feel good at the moment. But my why is that my husband and I were married 15 years and have never, since we started dating, experienced a relationship that wasn't completely overcome with money stress. And like we didn't even know who we were as a married couple without worrying and stressing and fighting about money all the time. And if we were going to fight to get out of debt and fight to save our marriage, like we want to fight to save a marriage that's much better than what we've been doing for the past decade and a half. So that was my purpose, and I think just finally being able to connect to it gave me that extra motivation. And don't get me wrong, I messed up plenty. I messed up plenty of times along the way.
What did you learn from that? Because some people hear stories like this and think that they're supposed to start and smooth sail their way to the finish line. So talk about the reality of the journey, that although you all rocked it in a, relatively speaking, short amount of time, I'm sure that it wasn't smooth the whole time. So what were some of those bumps, and how come you didn't let those bumps knock you guys off course?
Um, we were really fortunate for our journey. Our bumps were just more the day to day. We didn't really have anything major happen. We didn't have any major sicknesses, emergencies, thankfully. So we were fortunate in that way. I know not everybody's journey goes that smoothly, but we had just a lot of the day to day, smaller expenses that we weren't expecting. A pet gets sick and you go to the vet, just things like that. A lot of school stuff come up with the kids or sports things. Um, and I think what we learned along the way was prior to this journey, we would have just allowed those things to derail us, right? We would have just been like, you know what, forget it. This is never going to work. Every time we try, this happens and we get knocked off. And we really, looking back, we really had a victim mentality along the way. And it's like, everybody deals with that stuff. We're not special. Everybody has bumps along the way. You can plan and prepare as much as you want, and there's always going to be something or someone or some event that's going to try to knock you off course. And uh, I think eventually we just kind of were like, okay, we're going to just start again tomorrow. Whereas before we would just say, forget it, it's done, it's hopeless. And it truly is, it sounds cliche, but it truly is just getting back up and just keep going. And maybe it knocked us back a week, maybe it knocked us back a month, but then we had one of those windfalls come out of nowhere that propelled us forward multiple months, right? So it was always like that one step forward. It wasn't one step forward, two steps back. It was kind of like one step back and two steps forward. And it really is just being able to force yourself, or maybe force your partner and have them force you, hold yourself and each other accountable that you're just not giving up. And in our case, I felt like giving up meant the end of our marriage. Maybe not right away, but eventually the end of our marriage. And not everybody is going to have that profound moment, right? Some people are a lot smarter than we were, and they want to just do it because they know their life would be better. Like you said, they know they'd have more freedom. Not everybody feels as though their marriage is hanging in the balance, but um, whatever it is, if you can identify your why and find something that motivates you, I don't care if it feels silly, like you want to buy a car, or maybe it feels really, really purposeful, like you want to be able to, I don't know, help a family member who's in need, whatever that is. If you can really lock your eyes on that, it will push you forward.
So you started with a $35,000 debt load, got that out the way. Then you went after that $20,000 debt load. Can you give context for people that are listening, wondering, man, what does it feel like when you called the credit card company and you were about to make that very last final payment? What was that day like? What was that moment like? Talk us through that. Paint the picture.
If I'm being really honest, it was kind of anticlimactic. I kind of expected confetti to fall and, the air horns to go. And don't get me wrong, it felt great. It really did. But it takes some time, I think, to sink in. It almost takes a couple months of you not having to make those additional payments and seeing a little bit extra money in your account before you're like, yeah, that really happened. Like, it's really done. It's really over with. I mean, immediately it was exciting. Of course, we yelled and cheered and hugged, and our kids were like, "Good job, mom!" But it really is. It's just, I guess, that culmination of that 20 months. At that point, it had become just what we do, right? Like, it had become, just as you can develop those habits of overspending and accumulating debt over 20 months, you do, whether you realize it or not, you do develop the habits of being more mindful and saving more money and finding other ways to pay for things or save for things. And so it just kind of felt like our new normal.
Man, that's so good. Now, what has happened since? How has life changed? You said that the entirety of your relationship, even from dating, was involving money stress and, not being in the financial space that you wanted to. Now you are. How does it feel now? What has changed for both of you?
I'll tell you what, um, you know, paying off all your debt doesn't mean you'll never have money stress again, right? So we still have money stress, but it's a fraction of what it was, right? It's now we're able to kind of almost compartmentalize and let it stay in those money conversations instead of permeating into every single part of our lives. And that feels really good. It feels like we're finally able to enjoy even just simple moments of going to the store and getting treats on a Friday night without thinking, oh my gosh, do we have enough money? Do I have any money in the food? But I mean, it sounds silly, but that's, where we were at the time. And we don't have a lot of extra money still. I ended up leaving that part-time job shortly after we paid off our debt. So it took us a very long time then to save our emergency fund, which of course was a priority for us. So it kind of still felt like we were in that same pattern. We were still trying to keep expenses low and watch our spending so that we could take all extra money and put it aside for emergencies, because we were petrified at that point that something would happen and wipe away all the hard work that we did. So we focused on that for a long time. And once I left that job, I then decided to start my business, Sense and Purpose, that you mentioned. And I've just really felt so grateful and so blessed that we went from where we were with what we were making, which wasn't a ton, and got to where we had gotten so quickly that I just felt called, like I had to share it with other people. So I decided to start this business. And it felt different. I decided never, ever again would I take any of our personal money and put it into a business venture. And I decided never again would I spend even one penny on debt in a business. So it's been a roller coaster, some months better than others, but it feels really good to know that I'm doing this and I'm finally living out this entrepreneurial dream of mine without financial stress being tied to it and worrying that I can't even pay for my business's bills, right? That's been really exciting for me. And I think my husband just loves me not nagging him about his spending as much. I really do. I think that's it for him. He's happy.
Win-win situation now. So let everybody know about what they'll find when they come check you out at Sense and Purpose and social media and all that, so they can stay plugged in.
Okay, yeah, you can find me most places online at Sense and Purpose, and that is Sense, like the money sense with a C. I also have a YouTube channel that is under my name and Sense and Purpose, so you can just go to YouTube and search Sense and Purpose, and you'll find it. And I'm mostly active on Instagram. And my website is senseandpurpose.com. And I just have a whole bunch of free articles and freebies and debt trackers that you can print out for free and track your progress along your way. I have a free budgeting course, whole bunch of free tools there to help you get started on your own debt-free journey.
Awesome, Kristin. We'll be sure to have everything that you mentioned in the show notes of this episode. There may be somebody on the fence wondering if they have what it takes to do what you and your husband were able to do. If you had a chance to talk to him, what would you tell him?
Well, every time I'm asked this question, I have to give you a disclaimer that this advice is super lame. It's nothing exciting, but it remains the same every time, and that is just to start. It truly is. It's scary and it's overwhelming, but if you stop and think, if you don't start now and you continue to push it off because you're scared or you're overwhelmed or you don't know what to expect, excuse me, where will you be at this time next year? Right? So you could either be maybe halfway through your journey or have paid off a good portion of your debt, or you can be exactly where you are right now in this moment. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to be a finance expert. You can absolutely just jump and figure it out along the way. And you just have to start. You just have to push yourself to take that first step.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your wisdom, and making some time for us over at His and Her Money. We appreciate you coming by today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another fantastic episode of the His and Her Money Show is in the books. I hope that you guys not only are inspired by Kristins' story, but you are motivated to take action. Like she said, the key, the game-changing strategy that you need to employ is to just start. So hopefully you will do just that. If you need some more debt freedom example stories, motivation, it's real simple. Go to debtfreestories.com. You'll find a whole lot of motivation, no matter what your particular situation is. I bet you'll find a story there that matches it, because we just want you to know that you can and you should. That's all we got for this time, guys. It's been great. Until next time, peace.